Hello, Mr. Barry's Geometry. I'm looking at worksheet 8.61. Today is March 9th. It's not due until the 11th, Thursday. So getting a little head start on this if you are too. Let's talk about SOHCAHTOA. We're going to use this to kind of remember if we're going to use sine, cosine, or tangent. And then the ratios. This would be, sine and opposite over hypotenuse. This would be cosine adjacent over hypotenuse. This would be tangent opposite over adjacent. Okay. So with that in mind, let's take a look at number one. I think you did number one in class, but in case you weren't there, we need to know this side from this perspective, okay, of 46 degrees. Now, this is going to be the adjacent, and this would be the hypotenuse. Hypotenuse is always directly across from the 90-degree angle, okay? So AH, which one has AH in it? AH, cosine. So I'm going to be dealing with cosine. So the cosine of 46 is going to equal the adjacent over the hypotenuse, the x over the 16.5. What I'm going to do is multiply 16.5 by both sides. I get my x by itself, and cosine of 46 times 16.5 is 11.5. You just use the cosine button on your calculator right there. Okay, number two. We want to know this side, so I have the opposite over the adjacent. So I'm going to have the tangent. So opposite over adjacent is tangent. So tangent equals opposite over adjacent. So x over 11.8. I just multiply both sides by 11.8. Tangent 73 times 11.8 is going to equal x, which is 38.6. Tangent button right here on your calculator. Okay. For number 5. From this perspective of y, I want to know what y is. So I have the opposite, I know the opposite, and I know the adjacent. So OA is TOA, tangent. The tangent of y is going to equal the opposite over the adjacent. So I have to use that second function tangent, times the 33, and just put it in parentheses, 33.3 over 44.4, and you get 36.9 degrees, this measurement would be. We're going to use the second function when we're looking for the degrees, that second function of sine, cosine, and tangent. And I mark it just as it is on your calculator, sine -1, cosine -1, and tangent -1. Okay, number 7 is just like that. It's going to be tangent opposite over adjacent, and we're looking for the angle, so it's going to be tangent -1, and then you have that fraction 30.1 over 28.2, and you end up getting 46.9 as the degrees of that angle. I'm looking for a side now, and from this perspective of this angle that I know, I have the opposite over hypotenuse. So I'm going to use sine. So sine of 55 equals the x over the 76.3. Just multiply both sides by 76.3 and you get 62.5. For number 11, I'm taking a look at, I need to know this angle measure. I know the opposite and I know the adjacent. So opposite and adjacent, I'm going to be working with tangent here. So the tangent of that angle, so I use the tan -1 function, and I just have the opposite over the adjacent in parentheses, and I end up getting 50 degrees, 50-degree angle there. 13, I want this one. I want to know this angle, so I have the opposite over the hypotenuse. So opposite over hypotenuse is going to be OH. OH, the only one with OH is going to be sine. So I'm taking the sine -1 function with my opposite over the hypotenuse, and I get 19 degrees. For number 15, I want to know these the degrees of this angle. So I have the adjacent over the hypotenuse. So it's going to be 55 over 152. cosine -1 function with 55 over 152 gives me 68.8 degrees. Just put that in parentheses. And lastly, taking a look at this angle right here, I know the adjacent, I know the hypotenuse. So AH, the only one with AH is cosine adjacent over hypotenuse. So that is going to be 43.8 over 70.2 over the hypotenuse. And so I take cosine -1 function, put in parentheses 43.8 over 70.2, and I get the measure of that angle, which is 51.4 degrees. Got to put that little degree symbol there to signify the measure of an angle. Good luck on the ones that I didn't do. Go ahead and give them a try. Make mistakes, correct them, and that's the learning process right there.